Start. Right back up. And start. All right. There we go. All right. Now we're live. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I don't know what's happening, but interface is blowing up. Anyways, composer talk. Jacob, you're too far to
Yes,
the.
I am out of the pic. Here we go.
Yeah, I can't get much further to the right, unfortunately, because I have a pile of. I'll just call it fuel.
Extra close together for this Valentine's Day show.
I already have a date. Anyways, welcome to Composer Talk. First of all, quick apology on the last-minute cancellation last week. That was pretty much my doing because I was dealing with 3,000 things at once, and I forgot it was Wednesday, honestly, and I was doing general stuff, and it was bad news bears. Anyways.
I thought you exploded.
That too. And with that said, next week I am doing the generals proper on Wednesday. So we will not be having Composer Talk next week. So after this turbulent time, we'll be back to a weekly regiment, at least until one of us explodes again. But anyways, I apologize for last week. I apologize for next week. We'll be back on schedule after next week. I need to turn this down. But yeah, okay. So we got a few news items. Not too much groundbreaking. You want to go ahead and lead off?
The happiest news item, I think, is the news about the LA Philharmonic announcing their new season. And it's been called by the Los Angeles Times the most ambitious orchestral season ever. It's their 100th anniversary season, and of course their music director is the famous Gustavo Dudamel. So this art in the Los Angeles Times, Alex Ross has reported on this. The orchestra has put out over 50 new commissions, and they're going to be performing works by. There's going to be a concert with the works of 5 emerging Los Angeles composers. There's going to be a concert with the works of currently commissioned by 5 European avant-garde composers. They're going to perform works by John Adams and Tan Dun, who won the Pulitzer Prize this past year, and many other contemporary composers, living composers, as well as performing I think a cycle of Beethoven symphonies, Mahler, the big Mahler 10. No, Mahler 8. 8 is the one they're doing.
Let's say Mahler 10's technically
not Mahler 10. That's only one movement they have. But yeah, lots of new music, mini commissions, and the orchestra, if they keep this up, obviously this is a festival season, but the future is looking right for the LA Phil. If they keep up this emphasis on new music, and of course John Adams is one of the creative chairs of the orchestra, so I'm sure he exerts some influence on their programming in that capacity, which is good. But
well, I think it's good. This is a direction that a lot of orchestras take, at least for a little while. It doesn't seem to stick. It always seems to last a season or two, and then kind of the hype dies down, and people are like, "We want more Haydn," and then they play more Haydn instead. But hopefully, this is one of those that'll actually stick.
Well, it is hopeful because their orchestral programming this year is orchestras have been putting out their season plans has been rather dim otherwise. There's been a lot of controversy about the Chicago symphonies.
It's always like this, man. Like
it is.
It is. Say, like,
but well, I know, but I mean, it's dim. It's always dim. But yeah.
Well, worse things have happened, I guess. Anyway, so next on the docket, we've got Johan Johansson, Theory of Everything composer, dead at 48. That was a really powerful soundtrack, as I recall.
I haven't seen the movie, but
I've only heard clips of it, but it's quite good, especially in some of the more subtle moments of the work. It's a good bit of music. I wouldn't return to it, but I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed it enough that if I have more time on my hands, I might return.
That's how I'd characterize his music. Subtle. If you listen to the movie that he's scored that I'm most familiar with is Arrival, which was nominated for an Oscar in 2016. It's one of my favorite movies. And his score for that is beautiful in its subtlety. and the way in which it subtly accents what's going on screen without drawing attention to itself, which of course is what a film score is supposed to do. Johansson also has written concert music and released several of his own solo albums,
Mhm.
and has known for working with what's the name of the Dennis Villeneuve, the director he often works with. So sad news. We don't know the cause of death, so no news on that front yet. But sad regardless.
Hashtag composer coma.
for a composer to be gone so young. Continuing on the news cycle. This is something that I actually forgot to include a couple weeks ago when we had like a really news heavy show, so we didn't really need it because we had so much else going on.
We've had a couple of
Right.
those.
But there are several British organizations that have been partnering to create new works accessible to disabled musicians. The overarching organization putting this together has named itself Non-Zero Sum, and they have formed an ensemble called a group called the Acoustronic Ensemble, which is a mix of musicians with and without disabilities who perform actually many new works that are commissioned from contemporary composers, and they partner with both composers and with university researchers to create new instruments, in many cases digital instruments, for performers who don't have the capability to perform on traditional instruments.
Right. I think I've actually heard of this before this article. I I think there was another organization that did this for a while in like the early 2000s. I don't remember the name of it, but their mission was basically making kind of duet string instruments. Because obviously, I mean, we've all seen ridiculous things like, you know, two bassists sharing one bass, things like that.
Right.
But this was actually kind of I kind of wish I remember the organization's name, but they basically made a way to where, like, it intelligently detected, okay, now it will release the bow so that someone can pull the bow after a fingering changes. And then the next, so I mean, obviously it had limitations, but allowed for the possibility of, okay, now if you read this and you read this and put it together, kind of like the Cage radio piece that we did last semester. You take the two parts, it makes the greater whole that is then part of the ensemble's greater whole. We didn't
do a Cage radio piece.
Yeah, that wasn't a Cage radio piece. Never mind. The radio piece. My bad.
That was before my time, but I know the piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't remember when we did it.
It all blurs together after a while.
I've been on that ensemble for too long.
But yeah, this seems to be kind of a trend in Great Britain at the moment. There is another article that recently came out about the trying to pronounce it, the Bournemouth. If I'm not sure how to pronounce British names, Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, that has created a disabled-led ensemble that will perform in conjunction with the orchestra. So this seems to be making music accessible to people with disabilities. Seems to be a trend going on in Great Britain at the moment, which is good.
No, I'm actually curious on this. I wonder if they have music therapists running this. Because this honestly seems like a natural extension of music therapy.
It doesn't mention music therapists in the article. I mean, it says
I imagine that they're involved, though.
Be working along the conductor, the Alexander Kamkin, who's this ensemble also has a composer in residence and a young composer in association, Lucy Hale.
So here's the question though: how come it's only like these outreach type things that have composers in residence? Are they outreaching to us at that point? Do they feel bad for us? So they want to do it? Sorry. Dark humor.
Maybe people who think progressively in social areas also think progressively in musical areas. But I mean, I actually...
Maybe not.
I don't know. Maybe it's not really music therapy though. I mean...
Yeah, it isn't, but it just seems like an extension.
I don't know. I mean, I can... There's a connection there, obviously. But I mean... To me, it's a different thing that might relate. There's like an intersection, but
yeah, like
yeah.
again, it
Mhm.
seems to me like an extension of like to me it seems natural to have someone like my friend Emily sit in
Mhm.
there and be kind of the liaison of sorts to be like, oh no, sorry, they can't do that. However, if you change it to where it looks like this, then they can do that.
Well,
Or if you change it to where they do this, then they'll be able
mhm.
to do it perfectly. Type
And it
thing.
seems to me that a lot of people, a lot of the people who are active in music therapy that I know, this seems like the kind of thing they would be excited about. So yeah,
Right.
you can imagine.
Well, the
You
active
can,
therapist at least, because obviously
right.
there's the passive music therapist, which is more just like I'm gonna go play for grandpa while he's in the hospital recovering.
Well, like I said, those involve and music. That's not what music therapists do.
No, it's not. That's why I call it. That's why I distinguish it as passive music therapy because a lot of people call it music therapy. I
Well,
don't think it is, but
I
it is
just
often
don't call it
classified as
music
that.
therapy.
It's not, but ask the
Right.
common public, that's what they think.
Right.
Hence why I always distinguish, since there isn't really a name for it, I just call it passive music therapy.
I
Because honestly, you don't need the experience that music therapists we know
I
have to do that.
I just call it playing music for people in the hospital.
There are people that would fight you on that.
And so
I'm not saying they're right, but
I
they
mean,
would
but
fight you on
I
that.
mean, anyone in the music therapy community who has actually studied it is not going to identify simply going and playing music for somebody as music therapy.
Wrong. There are people who misinterpret it as that,
Well,
including some former colleagues of
I know
ours.
there are people who misinterpret it, but what it actually is, and if you talk to an expert in the field,
I know.
right?
I don't need to be lectured on that.
Right.
I've been dealing with that stuff for years.
So,
I was there when they nearly took over the building. All right. So outside of good disabled news, okay, moving on before I make another bad joke. The Caramore Festival takes a contemporary turn. This is actually kind of a good thing.
yeah.
Basically, the Summer Music Festival over in Westchester, basically they're going to kind of look back at great masterworks, but also at the same time look forward to what could be great new masterworks featuring, how many is it?
22 living composers. The Kronos Quartet will be involved, and an ensemble I haven't heard of called Also Percussion.
I've actually heard of them. They're actually quite good. I think
yes.
they I want to say they did something in like it was either St. Louis or OKC because I remember it was relatively close to me at the time, and I wanted to go. I don't know. I'd had to look back. I wrote all that stuff down in my Google Travel thing. Anyways, but yeah, this is another one of those festivals that it's not like a headline festival. It's not like Aspen or any of that, but this is a large enough festival that basically, if enough of these go this direction. So, like for instance, this in conjunction with the LA thing,
Right.
that's a couple things that if the right people see that two fairly major organizations are doing this, that's enough swing that maybe push a little more. I mean, I'm not saying that next year is going to be all contemporary music for everyone, but this gives me a lot of hope. And I mean, already two major organizations doing that, that's more than almost any other year. I mean, with the exception of I want to say 2010 was pretty productive for that. I don't know. It was either 2009 or 2010. It was near the end of my high school career.
Right.
But yeah. Either way, I think this is going to be great. I can't wait to see what's produced from this because, I mean, it looks like most of the works are actually going to just be written for it. I don't think they're bringing in some existing pieces. But either way, so I think this is going to be a really good thing. I think that the scene over in New York is going to be pretty good because New York is pretty much where the new music is at. And I think that I don't know. I think that there's enough influence in New York that this could go a lot of places. But anyways, all right. Moving on. You want to take this one?
Yeah, this is on the just what's going on in new music field.
I've heard of this.
There's this comes to us from American Composers Forum, who I believe it's the chairperson of the board of ACF, was profiled this past week about a project of hers in which she pairs music and smell to create art. She's started a project called, it's written
I'm trying to.
and I can't remember. Ear plus nose is her project, And in the past, she's created scent installations, as they're called, at museums and arts venues that are public essentially public scent galleries, where they pump in, perfumes and different kinds of scents, use them in combination and in isolation, so that people can just come in and enjoy the sensation of smell. And in the past, she has paired this with her own music. Um, and if you go to the American Composers Forum article, it's called the composer's Mary Ellen Child's Sound Plus Scent, if you just look that up. It's actually very interesting. She talks about the different kinds of music that work well with scent installations. It's not always concert music that works the best with it. Um, she's written that it tends to be kind of ambient, more atmospheric music that pairs well with it.
Yeah.
But she's had apparently some budget issues with trying to do these public scent installations.
Well, it's because, and this is the same issue that we ran into whenever we tried the whole 4D thing in theaters. It's really expensive for really not that much extra benefit. I mean, yeah, there is the benefit of, more immersion, but the problem is, in order to do, like, for instance, like, how much is an average 2D ticket for you?
I don't know, $8.
Like, $8. Okay,
Yeah.
now 3D, tack on an extra $2.50. You got like 10 or $11. 4D, often, at least whenever it was new, was another $3 or $4 on top of that. So you have nearly, in some cases, doubled the movie ticket price.
Right.
Now, whenever you're looking at a concert audience, we have a hard enough time getting people into the concert halls as is. If you tell people, here's an orchestra in 3D, just bear with me through that horrible example. Then, you got to tack on a bit more, and then, so we'll just call the 3D experience the, we're premiering new work experience. So you got to pay an extra buck or two. Most people will do that. If they knew that, no, there's something tangible and new, they know that they can shake the hand of the person that brought them this art, they're going to do that if they're actually interested in music at all. Now, and then the 4D equivalent of that would literally be, and we want you to not only pay $25 to see the symphony, an extra $5 for the fact that we've got John Adams coming in to premiere a piece, but we also want to tack on an extra $10 because we had to install all this HVAC equipment to pump scents into the room.
But this isn't really the same thing, though.
It isn't, but I mean, think about it. I mean, in general, you have to pay more. I mean, that equipment is really expensive to run. For the sense.
Well, I'm not sure she's. We'd have to. It doesn't actually talk about the kind of equipment she's using. She talks about doing scent dinners in her own home. That I imagine that being a lower budget enterprise where it's on a bit of a smaller scale, right? And you may have
certain scratch and sniffs. You want to walk through a museum with a scratch and sniff in front of Exhibit 32?
Yeah, but I mean, if you do it on a smaller scale, you don't have to bring in an HVAC. You just have to have some kind of scent that you release.
But that removes accessibility because then you've got to let's say you've got a family of 4 and you want to help support new music.
Right.
You go to this kind of sound and scent exhibit, and you've now got to keep track of, I'm just going to use the scratch and sniff example just because it makes me laugh. You've got to keep track of your scratch and sniff card, your partner's scratch and sniff card, your kid's scratch and sniff card for every single moment that you're supposed to use it during. Because honestly, what do most kids do with scratch and sniffs? They either lose it or they sit there and scratch all of them at once and smell them all at once because they think it's cool.
I seriously doubt she's using scratch and sniff.
I do, but like, in general, I mean, how do you think that this is going to be accessible? I'm just thinking the back end technologically. I mean, it's either going to be really expensive or really inaccessible.
Most people aren't going to experience it as accessible. But this is also something that is new. I mean, you don't see a lot of people in the past of our society thinking of scent as an art form in its own right. So anytime you do something new like this, it's going to be inaccessible by definition. People are going to be like, "What is this? Why do I want to go someplace and sniff things? That sounds stupid."
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the extra cost. There has to be an extra cost. Like, just objectively there has to be.
Right.
Otherwise,
and I mean,
you can't comp.
it's you're not gonna get. I mean, this isn't going to make a lot of ground. Like any art form. I mean, it's a lot of money for an orchestra to perform because you have to pay all the musicians. It's a lot of money to do this because you have to have the equipment to do. I mean, I see what you're saying. I don't see how it's really different from anything else. It's just inaccessible because
I just see it as
new.
no. I don't care about the new factor. I care
Mhm.
about the fact that it's an extra layer. Whenever we have enough trouble trying to fit people in the door as is, like literally, and I can tell you from the experience of it, the only profitable music I have in my thing that's currently like actually profitable is my
Right.
tape music. Because all
Mhm.
you gotta do is plug it in. All I gotta do is plug it in and hit play.
But at least
Don't have to pay
Child,
anyone
at least the
else.
composer here, isn't putting on concerts and adding smell. The approach she's taking to it is putting on scent experiences and adding music, at least according to this article. So you're catering to a niche audience by definition. Um, like,
Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to research a bit further and see how she's doing it, because to me it just seems, with how niche the audience is, it's just gonna, you're filing it down to a point that, like, who's it gonna be for? That one guy down the street that you heard one time, and then no one else in the
well,
whole town wants to hear it? Like, that's very, very niche.
but I mean, arts and anything avant-garde in art is niche. So do you just say we're
You
not
classify
going
this
to
as
do anything
avant-garde?
avant-garde in the sense that it's innovative? Yes.
Innovative does not avant-garde make. Yeah.
Have can you think of any composers who have done this before?
That doing something new does not make it avant-garde.
Well, it's new, it's innovative. It's I mean, I think it's interesting and it
Yeah,
blurs the
it is new. It
boundaries
is
between
innovative.
different art forms. So yeah, I would define it as avant-garde. I don't know if the music is avant-garde, but the concept is.
That sounds like a discussion topic we should have someday.
Perhaps, yes.
What is the definition of avant-garde? Hint, we just had a discussion about this in one of my classes, and I actually have a good hard definition. But if you can guess, I will give you $2. Mainly because I think that's the cash out part. Either way. Anyways, so yeah, not too much going on in Newsweek. Some interesting articles though. But anyways, the next thing we want to discuss, I mentioned this to Jacob because basically I've been thinking a lot about obviously my current process and where I am in life, and the fact that I'm sitting here preparing for all these journals and all that, and temporarily putting composition itself on pause, which is weird for me, especially because I pump out music like most people pump out CO2. I mean, it's ridiculous. But something that has struck me lately is it worth it? Like, how much does it actually benefit me to be where I am right now? And by that, I mean, how much does my doctorate get me? Do these general exams that I'm taking actually prove that I can be a good composer? And, does the fact that I'm like a degree and a half ahead of Jacob make me objectively a better composer? I mean, society says yes, but I would honestly argue no.
You think society says yes?
In general, yes, because they will always go for the person with more degrees. Doesn't matter what field you're in. I mean, I've run into this with computer science stuff, for instance. There's people that I can code circles around that get jobs ahead of me because they have the bachelor's.
I wouldn't say society says yes. I would say maybe academia does. That's not the same thing.
Okay, let's just roll with academia then.
Or
because I think that's more what I meant.
Okay, because I mean I think the answer to your question, does it make you a better composer? I mean, to me it's an easy no. I mean, how many times have you listened to the music of somebody who has a doctorate and teaches at university and been like, I can do better? You've done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have.
I've done it once or twice.
Right.
More than that. I'm pretty hypercritical of music.
And I mean, so like John Adams doesn't have a doctorate.
No, but like here's the important thing though. Like, why does why does academia in particular, but a wide portion of society, you
Mm-hmm.
know, people like, you know, people who maybe don't understand as much, so people like, say, your parents or my parents
Mm-hmm.
or my aunt and uncle, you know, why do they view it as, oh, Zach is a better composer because he has a doctorate? Even if this person that, you know, doesn't even have a bachelor's literally composes circles around me and makes me want to tear my eyeballs out.
I honestly haven't run into that.
I have, and it's very
Uh,
interesting, and then maybe it's just something that you, I don't know. For me, maybe it's just because I run into it more because I've kind of been in it for longer, so people just expect that I've seen it type thing.
I will occasionally run into somebody who thinks they're better than you because they have more degrees than you. But I mean honestly,
Well, like, how do you respond to that, though?
you don't. You ignore them.
Well, like, how? Like, if you have somebody who legitimately, routinely bugs you about, well, why should I listen to your music whenever I can go listen to, you know, Zach's because he has another degree? You know, why is it? Actually, here's a good
I mean,
example.
I haven't run into that.
Well, here's an example that we've talked about on the show.
Okay.
Whenever we looked at kind of the commissioning pyramid, like things like, okay, if you are a novice ensemble, then you will accept music from a high school ensemble fairly easily. If you're a high school ensemble, you'll accept from an undergraduate, college student easily, so on and so forth.
Right.
And it's hard to get parallel, and it's really hard to go up. Nearly impossible to go up, let alone 2 tiers up. And with that pyramid of kind of, I just call it like respect pyramid. I don't know. It's something weird, but why is it that that exists? Like, why is it that, okay, I trust this person because they have a master's and they're almost done with a doctorate in composition, whereas this guy, he only has a bachelor's and he just started a master's. I don't trust anything he writes.
I see what you're saying. Like I said, I don't know. I haven't encountered a lot of people personally being like, you're not as good as so and so because you don't have as many degrees. But yeah, I mean, in the professional world, and especially in the academic world, I see that happening. And I don't know. I think part of it. This isn't just a music thing.
No, it's not.
Credentialism in academia and in the job market in general is to me it's a huge problem. And I think on the one hand, yes, if you're talking about hiring someone, and when you commission a composer, you are hiring them to do something. I mean, you're not hiring them as an employee, but you are commissioning, you are
Right.
contracting them. When you hire someone to do something, on the one hand, yeah, I think there's a degree to which you can have a reasonable expectation for them to have pursued some education in their field. And but at the same time, I mean, you look at college professorate positions. I mean, a lot of the best people working in any given field are not the people who have doctorates. Some of the best people are the ones who have doctorates, but some have master's degrees or bachelor's degrees or no degrees.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something that I think is very strange because, I mean, like, you know, actually, here's a good case example. I'll just label this person Bob. This person, Bob, at one point was very upset with me because they had been in music significantly longer than me. Like, I'm talking, they were in it from the day they were born, basically. And I just started when I was in high school, basically, and just kind of waltzed in places. They were upset at one point that I had been chosen for a commission over him, Bob. And when I explained, well, it's because this person, Lucy, enjoys my music over Bob's, Bob literally could not understand. And Bob repeatedly asked, well, why? I've been in music longer. I know what I'm doing. Why am I not asked for this stuff? And I mean, frankly, yes, Bob was in music since the day he was born. However, I have been composing for longer. And just objectively speaking, I was actually writing current music, and Bob was busy rewriting what Mozart and Haydn were. So, I mean, does Bob have a point? Should Bob have been offended?
Okay. Well, I mean, I think there's multiple factors to this. First of all, put yourself in Bob's shoes. I'm not saying it's right. I don't think he's right.
I've tried to put myself in
Right,
Bob's shoes, but yes.
but I think you can probably understand, like, and maybe this particular situation it wasn't quite the disparity that some people might feel, but I think you can understand being someone with for example, you have a doctorate, you've been you're like 50, you're a renowned professor at university or whatever, and you submit to a competition or something, and then some undergrad wins, and it's like, well, who's this guy? Who does this guy think he is? You know, I don't think that's right. I don't think that attitude is right, but I think it's understandable. I think it's human for people to get a big head because they have more degrees or they've been doing something for longer. And then I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like I've never felt that before. It's not something we're like somebody who wasn't as experienced as me got chosen for something that I felt like I should have got, and it's not something that I cultivate in myself. I mean, when I start to think that way, I think, well, I mean, that's life. But I think it's natural to feel that way, and I think within the system, so to speak, if you perpetuate the hierarchy, so to speak, in some sense, you are justifying your position in it. Does that make sense? Like if you're
Loosely.
let's say you're a musician with a doctoral degree, and you're in a new music ensemble, and you tend to draw from a pool for commissioning and choosing works of other people who have doctoral degrees or advanced degrees. On the one hand, I think that's just a social thing. You tend to run in those circles.
Yeah.
And on the other hand,
so I'm gonna see more of them.
right. And on the other hand, by associating yourself with primarily with people who are at the same social level as you justify and maintain your position in the hierarchy. It's about power.
Okay.
Right.
I can see that. However, one thing that I will say is that you're kind of ignoring the inadvertently you ignored the other part of that, which is while Bob was in music hilariously longer than me, I had composed for 3 extra years.
Well, I
that
mean,
he didn't.
I'm not really talking about your particular every situation.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but like in that situation, which takes precedence? So, like for instance, let's just say let's just look at this objectively. Let's say for some reason you're just done after your master's, you go off, you teach somewhere. I'm done with my doctorate, I'm off teaching somewhere else. We both submit to, let's just say, whoever's running the New Century Ensemble here at that point. Let's just say that you win because, or actually no, let's say I win, even though let's just say at that point you are just objectively a better composer than me, you have all these awards, etc. But I win because I'm also a good composer with a doctorate, but maybe just not as good as you. Like, which would take precedence there? The fact that you are the better composer, or that I have more experience, and therefore there's a better likelihood that I will produce at least a competent piece of music. So, like,
I think the quality of the work should always take precedent. I mean, if we're the quality of a particular work, if we're doing a call for scores or something, and the quality of a composer's work overall, they're if they're seeking a commission or something. But here's the other angle. It's easier. Well, judging the quality of a piece of music is hard.
As someone who has sat on that side of the table, yes, it is.
It's very difficult. And there are a lot of people out there. I don't agree with them. I think they're tragically wrong. But there are a lot of people out there who don't think that music really has quality. I think it's all subjective, right? Even if you don't believe that, even if you do believe that you can write a good piece of music or a bad piece of music, and it is possible to judge between them, it's still a lot harder to do the work of judging the quality of a piece of music or of a composer's work rather than just picking the person who has more degrees or more experience. Which
Well, but is it a risk factor though? Like, let's take the example of that young girl that wrote the ballet
mhm.
several weeks ago. Technically, someone could decide, oh, this person has written a good piece, but
Uh-huh.
they've only written these two good pieces. So instead of picking her, who to them might be the objectively better
Mhm.
composer, I'm going to pick Jacob Frost because he also submitted, and Jacob Frost has a couple degrees and
Yeah.
therefore has the
One.
experience to at least yeah one and a half whatever one sorry you have a degree and
Right.
therefore you have the basic tools to at least put together a competent work that fits the bill. Maybe not the best work,
Uh-huh.
but it will fit the
Well, and
bill.
I do think to a degree that makes sense. Especially if you're dealing with somebody who's very inexperienced and you're not sure if they're a one-hit wonder, so to speak.
Right.
And I think that that makes perhaps even more sense when we're talking about teaching jobs. Whereas you can evaluate someone's composition all you want, but just because you're a good composer doesn't mean you're going to be a good teacher. If you
Right.
have a degree, at least you have been in academia and you have learned from your teachers and you have a broad enough base of knowledge that you can probably adequately teach. Because I mean, it's not like you think I've never applied for an academic job. I'm still getting my degrees, but I don't think they test you on your music history when you go into a right. They ask you to give a lecture. From what I understand, I mean they'll evaluate your work, but it's not like you have to take your comps again or your generals again.
I was about to say,
Right.
you don't take comps.
Well, master's students.
No, you don't. You just take a thesis.
Oh, they're called different. They're different in music. Okay.
No, like just like you will only write a thesis. You don't take a comp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I had to take more tests
Nope.
for my master's. That's good to know.
Yeah, you literally do nothing.
I should probably know what's required for my own degree.
You probably should.
Um,
It's okay, it makes up for it because you have to take a lot of tests. But anyways,
If
so
you
the last bit
yeah.
that I wanted to
Mhm.
discuss before we close out was um, the kind of the ability of these tests. Because keep in mind, the tests I'm taking,
Mhm.
what you're familiar with, but others might not be. I'm basically being tested on: can I analyze a piece of music in a thorough manner? Can I identify a list of composers from throughout history? And can I talk in depth about any style period given out of a list
Right.
of like 40 or so?
Mhm.
And there are other parts such as can I design parts that make sense. Can I design a composition course?
Mhm.
Can I listen to a piece of music and know where it came from? Things like that. But as far as that history and theory stuff goes, I mean, in theory, if you've passed all your classes, shouldn't you have that ability enough? I mean,
Mhm.
basically, what do these journal exams I'm taking prove about my composition abilities?
Do you know people do like like people take they don't remember what they do and that they learn in their classes.
Okay, you know me. In my mind, they should.
Right, they should, but they don't. So
Okay, well then,
right.
why did they pass the class?
Probably because the class was well, if it's structured around tests, they crammed for the test and they passed fair and square, but then they forgot everything afterward. If the class was structured around not or papers or something, maybe they managed to get just enough knowledge to do well on the particular assignments, bare minimum. Maybe the teacher just was too loosey goosey. I see. I know where you're going. I know what you. I know what your opinion on this is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it does. I mean, I like as somebody you taking the generals like yeah, I understand why you think they're kind of pointless. Like, I had to take this test. Why do I have to take
Not
this
all of
test?
them. Some of them I do
Right,
understand. Like
right.
being able to identify something style period, being able
hmm
to design a composition
And,
course makes
and I mean,
sense.
honestly, generally speaking, I don't really think testing is a good way to evaluate someone's knowledge. I don't. For as far as pedagogical purposes in a class, I think that it's better to structure your class around assignments and papers and
That's
creative
basically
things.
what the tests are, just so you know.
Right. Well, and I mean, obviously, yeah, you have to write essays and stuff. Um. So, but I mean, to a degree, I think it's your final. It's that last hurdle. I mean, if they didn't, you can't just hand these out to anybody.
Well, yeah.
Right. So I don't. I mean, I don't know what you asked this question. I don't know if you asked this because you have an opinion and you want to,
No,
or because you want to
actually,
hear what I want to think.
I kind of wanted to
But-
hear what you want. I kind of wanted to hear what you thought,
t-
because basically, to me, I'm at the point now where it's like I'm just gonna take them, get it over
Right.
with. If I fail, then I'm just gonna go work at McDonald's. No, I was kidding.
Oh.
But in general, I guess the final thought is this. I
Mhm.
don't know if the tests actually have to do with my compositional abilities. I think more not what they are.
Mhm.
Elaborate hazing, just kidding. I think it's actually more just a structured way to prove that you can be an academic and
Well,
an
and
asset to the academic world. And I think that honestly, that's kind of what, at this point, I think that that's all the doctorate degree does as far as composition. Because honestly, I'm taking the same coursework. I'm
Mhm.
taking the same composition lessons. I'm doing the same extracurriculars. The only difference is I've got more of them, and I'm doing a lot more unique research projects,
Well,
which just shows that maybe I can be an
and
asset.
to
I don't
me,
know.
I am doing the master's now, but I plan on doing the doctorate because I want to teach. I probably wouldn't do the doctorate if I didn't want to teach.
Right, like
And-
if
and-
in 6 months you decide, I'm probably not going to teach,
Right.
or at least I'm only going to teach at like a community college or something because that's my calling at that point.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's no point in getting
Yeah,
doctorate.
because I mean, and I've even heard professors describe it as such. Your master's is essentially your finishing school, so to speak, and then the doctorate is the academic degree that you take to bring you into the world of being a professor eventually, essentially.
Eventually,
And to
essentially,
learn
I
how
like
to and
that.
learn how to teach. So
Well, anyways, thank you for your thoughts on that. You got to run.
yes,
Yes.
I have a lesson. I have to go.
Yes.
But thank you for tuning in. For those of you who did, and for those of you who may tune in later, we appreciate your hate mail.
No. Anyways, well,
See you
thank you
later.
for tuning into Composer Talk this week. Again, peacing out. Your chair's still in here, by the way.
I'm in a hurry.
Fine. Anyways, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you not next week, but the week after that. So the last week of February, the last Wednesday. It'll be great, I promise. See you then.